Part 1.
I don't really see what the big deal is about this whole bird flu thing. They're talking about it like it's a worldwide illness, but just a few people have gotten it.
Well, that's because it can't be spread from human to human. Humans can get it from handling infected birds, but they can't spread it to others. The fear is that the virus will change form so that it can spread from human to human. If that happens, the situation would be a whole lot worse.
Yeah, that makes sense, but that's a big if. Why are people panicking now?
I don't think most people are panicking, but it's a good idea to be prepared. You know, if the virus changes form, there will probably be a worldwide illness, and the economic impact of that would be pretty severe.
How?
Well, for example, one big problem would be the workforce. Sick people wouldn't be able to go to work, so the workforce won't be as productive. So some companies are preparing for that possibility. For example, there's this one bank that's reorganizing its whole system so that people will be able to work from home if they have to.
Oh, wow, that's a great idea.
If a global sickness breaks out, it's going to be disastrous. The Asian Development Bank said there could be almost $300 billion in losses when you account for lost trade, investment, and consumption. That's for Asia alone.
But don't you think all of this panic can have a negative impact on the economy? I mean, it can make these predictions come true. Take the tourist industry. A lot of people will avoid destinations that have had bird flu incidents.
Yeah, I know. There is a lot of sensational reporting that may be doing more harm than good.
Part 2.
Listen to part of a lecture in an art class.
Fresco is one of the oldest forms of painting. In painting a fresco, wet plaster is used as the base, and the artist mixes pigment with water to paint directly onto this wet surface. As it dries, the surface absorbs the paint, and the painting literally becomes a part of the surface. This is what we call buon fresco, or true fresco. Buon means good in Italian, but we can think of it as pure or true. Besides this, there is also secco fresco. Now, can anybody tell me the difference between the two? It may be easier if you know that secco is Italian for dry.
You mean secco fresco uses dry plaster instead of wet plaster?
Exactly. But secco fresco is not considered quite as authentic because dry plaster does not absorb and integrate with the paint. Now, let's talk about the process and the difficulties associated with buon fresco. Buon fresco is difficult to create because of the deadline for the drying time of plaster. An artist needs to meticulously prepare what he or she wishes to accomplish before the plaster dries, dividing the piece into sections that can be expediently completed. A second, somewhat more challenging feature is the fact that mistakes are very difficult to cover up. Normally, a painter can disguise mistakes by simply painting over them, but this is not the case with buon fresco, where the pigment is absorbed. Once dried, no more buon fresco can be painted without removing the dried plaster from the wall.
Part 3.
Listen to part of a lecture in a physics class.
We've all slipped on ice at some point. So, what makes ice slippery?
Is it because of pressure? I heard that when we step on ice, our weight presses down so much that the ice melts a little bit.
That's a common explanation, but it's incorrect. Pressure really has little effect on how slippery ice is. Got any other ideas?
What about friction?
That's another common explanation. Some textbooks still even explain ice that way, but they shouldn't. Most of the time, friction doesn't create enough heat to actually melt the ice. The two ideas you just described are old theories about ice. What I'm about to explain is actually a pretty new idea. Let me start by reminding you that ice is a solid that's made out of molecules of water. When ice forms, these molecules of water join together in large sheets. There are lots of layers piled up on top of one another. Recently, some researchers theorized that the surface layer of ice is different from the layers of ice below. To test their theory, they bounced tiny particles off of the surface of ice and looked at the patterns they made. They discovered that there was an invisible top layer of ice. It was invisible because the molecules of water were moving very fast. They realized that because of the way the molecules move around, the top layer of ice acts just like a liquid. The researchers believe that that's why it's possible to ski and skate. Understand what I mean? Let me explain a little bit more. I told you that ice is made of layers of sheets of water molecules. Well, the molecules that are joined together in a sheet stick to each other better than they stick to the molecules in the layers above or below their sheet. So actually, this allows a sheet to slide around between the sheets above and below it. And that's why we can skate. Because when our skate pushes sideways on a layer of ice, the sheets slide around, and we glide. Well, imagine a conveyor belt. You know how the belt moves across the rollers? That's just like how layers of ice work.
Part 4.
Did you catch that documentary on TV last night?
You mean the one about how mummies were made in ancient Egypt?
Yeah.
I sure did. Wasn't that incredible? Which part did you like the best?
Well, it was kind of gross, but I thought it was really interesting how they removed the internal organs.
You mean how they removed the liver, lungs, intestines, stomach, heart, and brain, right?
Actually, they left the heart because it was special. They didn't realize the significance of the brain, so they pushed an instrument up the nose and pulled out the brain. The other organs, though, they carefully put in special jars because they thought the people would need them in the afterlife.
Yeah, that was cool. I thought it was very efficient to wash the body with palm wine. I'm sure the ancient Egyptians didn't know about germs, but using wine killed a lot of bacteria.
Exactly. They didn't know what we know today, but they did know how to dry the body out with a salt-like substance.
I also was amazed how they wrapped the body with linen so that the wrappings wouldn't slip.
And how they inserted magical charms between the layers of wrappings to protect the body.
Wow, those Egyptians really knew what to do without the benefits of modern science. Whether they were ordinary people buried in simple tombs or pharaohs in pyramids, so many of the bodies are still in good condition today.
I guess we can still learn a lot from ancient cultures.
Part 5.
On our business segment, we're going to tell you about one company that is becoming an industry leader through encouraging its staff and customers to have fun. Laughter, it is often said, is the best medicine. Darnell Schmidt and George Strand, co-founders of a chain of DVD rental shops called Kappa Entertainment, believe that laughter also makes the best business model. It all starts with educating the staff on the joys of mixing business with pleasure. Schmidt and Strand believe that happy employees are good employees. In fact, if you're interested in working at one of their shops, you'd better bring your best joke with you to the interview. After answering questions about your work experience and educational background, the two will want to hear your best joke. If they laugh, chances are you'll be working for them soon. Each of their stores has a joke corner where workers and customers are free to read and post their own jokes. Since Kappa Entertainment is in the DVD rental business, most jokes are about famous actors and musicians, but you'll also find jokes on almost every subject. Why this emphasis on humor? As Schmidt and Strand point out, happy workers are absent from work less often, get along better with their coworkers, and stay with the company longer. This creates a work environment that is low in stress and, therefore, a better place for workers and customers. And happy customers are repeat customers. As Strand told me, if I can make you laugh just once, you'll come back to my store again. With 3 new stores opening in Asia this month and a large mega store due to open next month in Hong Kong, Schmidt and Strand are laughing all the way to the bank.